RuneScape is pretty big. It's entirely possible to spend thousands of hours on the game without exploring all of it. After being inspired by Pookaguy's One Chunk Man series, I decided to start a similar challenge with a few differences. The RuneScape map is split into map tiles, or chunks. I want to explore the entire map by completing all the content one chunk at a time. Once I complete a chunk, I choose myself a new chunk to unlock, all with the goal of eventually accessing the entire map. This is Chunk Man only, my one chunk at a time Iron Man. We left off last episode having just achieved 40 smithing, and as always, thinking about where to go next. Our tentative plan was to go to Zaya and make our way to the Woodcutting Guild to buy a rune axe. As it turns out, our path to the Woodcutting Guild would work. We wouldn't encounter any unexpected grinds on the way, and we'd be able to get to the guild. There was a problem though. A viewer pointed out that the Hosidius house was going to be reworked completely. The whole layout of this part of Zaya would change. If this happens after I unlock this part of Zaya, it might suddenly introduce some content to me that I'm forced to do immediately. I'd rather not have grinds randomly thrown at me like that, so for that reason I decided to wait to go to Zaya. In the meantime, now that I had my mining, smithing, and crafting at higher levels, there were a few chunks I could unlock without having to grind anything. I first unlocked the chunk with the crafting guild. This would give me a way to get gold without having to use law runes to telegrab the gold bar in the Varrock basement. This would be good for crafting jewelry. I had to get my law runes as rare drops from dark wizards, so this is a big improvement. I then unlocked the Eastern Varrock mine chunk. The only thing I had to do here was mine some iron for the diary task. The next chunk would be the Remington mine. I completed the Witch's Potion quest and was done with the chunk. This also unlocked the house portal, but since I had no access to an estate agent or planks, I still couldn't train construction. I then took a look at the chunk south of me. This contained the eastern port of Karamja, as well as the western coast of the mainland. The mainland part contained no content that would make me grind anything. It might look like the Asgardian ice dungeon is in this chunk, but the entrance is actually in the first tile on the chunk to the east of this one. So if I unlocked this chunk, I could sail to Karamja, and on this port there's also a charter ship. This means I can unlock the charter ship without having to unlock the ice dungeon. So I unlocked this chunk next. Since I now had access to the charter boat shop, I could now buy pineapples, which meant I needed to get 65 cooking to make a pineapple pizza. So I went back to the fly fishing spot in Lumbridge, and spent a while fishing trout and salmon. This time I decided not to bank the fish in order to save time. I just cooked them and dropped them. Eventually I got to 65 cooking, and I made the pineapple pizza and was ready to unlock a new chunk. I wanted to unlock the closest charter shop to a bank that I could, to make crafting with glass blowing as efficient as possible. The closest to a bank that I had access to was in Port Gazard, but if I unlocked that chunk, I'd also unlock the fishing trawler, which would mean having to get the cooking level to cook a manta ray. I'd prefer to do that once I had a better method for cooking unlocked, so I went with the next best, which was the Catherby port. Fortunately, there was nothing in the chunk which would require me to grind anything, so I had to think about where to go next again. I thought for a while and noticed some interesting things. There was an estate agent in Sears Village, and the Varrock sawmill wasn't too far away. Also, the only thing keeping me from finishing Rune Mysteries, unlocking the Essence Mine and training rune crafting, was the Wizard's Tower chunk. So far, I had the air altar and fire altars unlocked. The chunk with the Varrock sawmill also contains the earth altar. So if I wanted to unlock both rune crafting and construction, I could first unlock the sawmill, then the Wizard's Tower, craft air runes and earth runes until I could make fire runes, then unlock Sears Village for the estate agent. Another benefit of doing this is unlocking the elemental workshop quests. I could complete both of them, and the elemental monsters drop law runes more frequently than dark wizards, so that'd be very useful. So I decided to go with this plan. The first new chunk I unlocked was the Eastern Varrock chunk. I previously thought that since this chunk contains the start to the Family Crest quest, I need to have 59 magic before starting the quest. But it turns out I don't need that requirement until the end of the quest, so I would be fine starting it now. So I started the quest, then went to Catherby to talk to Caleb. I couldn't get all of the fish for him, so that was as far into the quest as I could go. The other quest here that I unlocked with this chunk is a Soul's Bane. If any of you guys have done this quest before, you know how creepy and weird this quest is. I don't know which JMod designed this quest, but I'm curious to know exactly what types of drugs they were on because they were clearly on a bunch of them. You go into a rift and are somehow trapped inside this kid's mind as he goes through 4 different emotions. And at the end, you fight the kid inside of his brain in the form of 3 heads that are coming out of the ground. What the actual fuck? So after finishing the weirdest quest in the game, I unlocked the Lumberyard chunk. I finished Gertrude's cat and had 2 easy diary tasks to complete. I chopped a dying tree and made a plank, and I was done with the chunk. The next chunk to unlock was the Wizard's Tower chunk. This one unlocked the rest of Rune Mysteries, the Imp Catcher quest, and the Lesser Demon in the Cage. Thankfully, I already had all of the beads for the Imp Catcher quest from killing imps in the very first chunk. So I turned those in and got the Amulet of Accuracy. I finished Rune Mysteries, made an Amulet of Magic, and started fire striking the Lesser Demons. From the Lesser Demons, I would need 2 drops, a Rune Medhelm and a Black Kite Shield. These were new best in slot items for me. These items were the same rarity, so I had about 60k left over from selling the Willow Longbows in the first chunk. I ended up using all of that money on fire strikes, and getting 4 Rune Medhelm drops without a single Black Kite Shield. I sold all but one of them to the general store, along with some other items in my bank, and I bought more fire strikes. I used up those fire strikes, with still no luck on a Black Kite Shield. I took out everything I could possibly find in my bank with any alch value that I didn't need, and I sold it to the general store. And I bought even more fire strikes. I used them all up, and still no Black Kite Shield. I spent a few days at the Lesser Demon so far, and I've gotten all the way to 56 magic. That's where I am now, and that's where this episode ends. I need to figure out a way to make money for more runes. So if you guys have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. My current idea is making sapphire and emerald jewelry and selling it to the shop in Port Sarim. Next episode, we'll get the Black Kite Shield, runecraft up to fire runes, unlock construction, and finish the elemental workshop quests. After that, I might consider going to Zaya through Land's End, giving us a long grind with cooking sharks. If you guys have any other ideas for what to do next instead of going to Land's End, let me know. And as always, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and if you want to stay up to date with the series, subscribe to my channel so you can see the next video as soon as it's released. Also, I recently made a Patreon account. If for some reason you want to give me money, then the option is there, but I don't expect anyone to do that. Figured I'd make the page just in case though. Anyway, with that out of the way, I hope you all have a great day. This kid's like 8 years old. I can't live with your rules anymore, mother. Oh, fucking hell, seriously? No. No!